Getting into the second section, which is about how do you articulate and describe problems. Now, before we start to describe problems, we need to understand certain basics about the business. So let's say you're in a situation where there's a very vague problem given to you. You're getting on a new project and you know nothing about the client. There are certain basic things that you need to know in order to understand the broader context and the problem that they're trying to solve.
And this is par for the course.
Yes.
We are generalist BAs
Yeah.
for the most part. We do gain domain expertise over a period of time, but oftentimes we're thrown into domains that we don't understand at all.
Absolutely. So I think the first and foremost is, if you're in that kind of a situation, do your homework. By that, we mean that you would need to understand how the business operates. Some of the businesses are very easy to understand. Let's say if you're in a food delivery business, because we use those products day in and day out. But
Or
if you're, or e-commerce, right, general. But if you're on a banking project or on an insurance project, you can't go on day one and ask, hey, how do you make money? I think how to make money and the basic domain understanding needs to be there so that you can talk to them in their language. Again, value streams, where do they get value from? Some of the information is already available out there. Google is your friend. Go bonkers, do your research. And also have some idea about the current realities of the client and in some competition that they're facing.
Yeah, I would just add that, when you think about domain, right, there are multiple sides to the domain. There is the domain in which the client operates. It could be e-commerce, it could be food delivery, for example. But there's also the domain of the problem. And the problem that the client might be solving may not necessarily be for their domain. And so you have to research both sides of it.
Yeah. But you do need to understand how that fits into the bigger picture and the bigger scheme of things.
Yeah. Clients really do appreciate if you've given thought to their problem, probably a little more than they've given thought to their problem. So having novel ideas and having some homework helps us get into the right frame of mind and helps us position ourselves great with our clients.
Yeah, and you will have a different level of conversation with them. Right. So now when you're with the clients, I think some of the things that we're not saying this is a facilitation tool, but we need to get answers, some basic answers. We need to articulate our questions to the clients to understand each of these things at least. There could be more. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is at least the least we should know. So the first one is, which is the outcome, and what business outcome are we trying to achieve, or what goal do we want out of this project or our product? How will we measure success, right? Like if we were successful, how would we know that we are successful? Do you want to walk through the rest?
Yeah. So we're always trying to solve for real users, and I'm pretty sure if you brainstorm hard enough, everything has a real user. So who are our target customers? We exist in markets, and the clients exist in a certain market. What are the realities of that market? We've talked about competition. We've talked about, changing regulations. So all of those are market realities. And then there are obviously constraints that drive business, right? So there could be budget constraints. There could be regulatory constraints.
Or time constraints.
Or there could be time constraints. So there could be
like I have to go to market by so and so date because my investors are asking for it. We can't just leave that.
Yeah. And then one of the big things to consider is that there are existing differentiators for the business, which gives them that competitive advantage. And there is potentially a set of differentiators they want to drive with the work that they want to do with you. And so what are those differentiators? And so while this is not an exhaustive list of things that you'd like to get through, we hope that this gives you a framework to think through what are the questions you would like to ask a client and how you would structure your problem-solving sessions with them to be able to uncover all of this information.
Right. Absolutely. I think we missed market realities, but the whole idea was just having some knowledge about where the market is heading. So, for example, if you're in a banking industry in today's era, have some idea about how banks like Paytm and MobiKwik are disrupting the industry. So what are the upcoming trends and so on, so that again you can have like
Yeah.
a good enough conversation.
Yeah, and also, what are the expectations of users and how are those changing in current markets? All right, so that should set enough context as we start off with describing our problems. In the next video, we'll talk about how we try to understand our user segments.
Yeah.